This presentation is for the International Business Course 580 by Group 3. Our target audience is Senior Management at Alaskan Seafood Marketing Institute. In this presentation, we will discuss our product, Alaskan Seafood, the target market, Greece, and our entry strategy for that market.
Our team will be presenting an overview of the entry strategy for exporting new Alaska seafood products into Greece. This is a project that one of our team members is currently working on with Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute, or ASME. In 2018, the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA, released a competitive one-time round of funding for agricultural trade promotions, or ATP funds, to offset the effects of the retaliatory tariffs in China and to cultivate new markets. These ATP funds are specifically designed to be utilized in emerging markets. ASME has previously ran a marketing program in Greece, but the program no longer made sense during an economic downturn and their long-standing recession. The USDA has recently identified seafood as a high-value, consumer-oriented product prospect for export to Greece. With the addition of $7.5 million in ATP funding and the current rebounding economy, Greece was added back to ASME's Southern Europe program, joining Spain, Italy, and Portugal. This opportunity, coupled with the influx of funding, has opened up the potential of reestablishing Greece as an export market for Alaska seafood.
Our target market is Greece. Greece is a country in southeastern Europe with thousands of islands throughout the Aegean and Ionian Seas. Greece is considered the cradle of Western civilization. Athens, its capital, retains landmarks including the 5th century BC Acropolis citadel with the Parthenon temple. Greece is also known for its beaches, from the black sands of Santorini to the party resorts of Mykonos. In 1981, Greece joined the EC, now the EU. It became the 12th member of the European Economic and Monetary Union, EMU, in 2001. Greece was the first developed country to be downgraded to emerging market status. Greece is a member of the Schengen area. While not a major factor, it makes entering the country easier for tourists and leaving it easier for immigrants. The political landscape in Greece can only be described as unstable. In the last decade, there have been multiple administrative shakeups across all areas of government. Greece is also a gateway to Europe for traffickers smuggling drugs from the Middle East and Southwest Asia, and it's estimated that Greece's black market is 20 to 25% of GDP. All of this contributes to the high levels of corruption and government instability in this country, which has led to Greece's poor economic performance in recent years. Greece has suffered a severe economic crisis since late 2009 due to nearly a decade of chronic overspending. Beginning in 2010, Greece entered 3 bailout agreements worth a total of $300 billion. The Greek government formally exited the 3rd bailout in August 2018. From an economic perspective, one of Greece's greatest strengths is its thriving tourism industry. Greece is a popular tourist destination for not only travelers within Europe, but also globetrotters from all corners of the earth. Attracting more than 20 million travelers each year, tourism is estimated to be responsible for 10 to 20% of all employment in the country. Since tourism involves money from outside the country, this industry is little affected by the economic recession discussed previously. In much of Europe, Greece is regarded as having a rich culture and heritage. From its varied food to its legendary ancient history, many tourists find Greece a fascinating country for this reason. With numerous historical artifacts and places, including the Parthenon and others, Greece has significantly deeper cultural and historical roots than many other European countries. Greece has a relatively high dependency ratio, which is a measure of the fraction of the population that is unable to provide for itself, as compared to the fraction of the working population. Although a dependency ratio of about 50 to 60% is not at all abnormal in developed countries, it may hinder the country's ability to recover from economic setbacks. Despite its economic setbacks, Greece is still a very well-developed country. It has great technological infrastructure, from plenty of cell towers to reliable power networks, so citizens and tourists alike can rely on the same high quality of digital connectivity as in any other European country. Digital nomads, tech startups, and everyday citizens can all leverage modern technology thanks to this infrastructure. As a member of the European Union, it's no surprise that Greece has signed numerous international agreements on environmental conservation. These govern environmental concerns such as air pollution, ozone layer damage, and disposal of hazardous waste. Overall, this means that Greece actually stands within international expectations for environmental policy. There are a couple of Hofstede's dimensions that U.S. companies would do well to understand when operating in Greece. Greece is a collectivist culture. This is an important aspect of the working environment where, for instance, an older and powerful member of a family is expected to help a younger member be hired into their own company. From an individualist culture like the US, this could be perceived as nepotism, but in a collectivist society, this is normal behavior. In business, it's important to build up trustworthy and long-lasting relationships in a collectivist culture. Greece also has the highest score on uncertainty avoidance, which means that as a nation, Greeks are not at all comfortable with ambiguous situations. In Greece, bureaucracy, laws, and rules are very important to make the world a safer place to live in. Their high score in this dimension means that Greeks are very passionate and demonstrative people. In addition to the cultural differences detailed in the Hofstede dimensions, Alaskan seafood will need to be prepared for a number of international management issues when entering the Greek market. There's significant competition from members of the European Union who will not face the same import duties and tariffs that US products must pay. The Greek market also requires different labels and sizes than the US market, and the taste profiles may vary significantly from US norms. For example, spicy doesn't necessarily mean hot. The SWOT analysis shows that while Greece's political and economic situation makes things difficult and the competition from other EU member states is strong, US products are regarded as very high quality, and the volume that we have may be able to provide a significant competitive edge in this market.
As you might imagine, seafood is a staple in the Greek diet. This slide compares the seafood consumption across Europe. As of 2013, seafood consumption per capita in each member state varied from approximately 54 kilograms in Portugal to approximately 5 kilograms in Hungary, with Greece consuming just under 20 kilograms per capita. According to the EU Fish Market Report in 2016, the household expenditure for fishery and aquaculture products in the EU in 2015 reached 53.8 billion, which was up 3% from 52.2 billion in 2014, and by 19% from 50 billion in 2005. Expenditure increases were reported in all EU countries. The main contributions included Spain, Italy, and France, which accounted for 56% of EU expenditures. Seafood consumption varies in different regions of the EU. When looking at the southern EU, you can see how the seafood consumption in Greece remained relatively flat between 2005 and 2013. Citizens of the Mediterranean states are among the largest fish consumers worldwide. The region has an annual average consumption of 33 kilograms of fish per person, while the EU average is only 22 and the international is only 19. With regard to Greece, the seafood consumed is comprised of both imported and domestic products, with 66 imported, 22% domestic aquaculture products, and only 12% are domestic fishery. In addition, most of the fishes sold in the Mediterranean markets are typically imported from developing countries, while it's noted that for every kilogram of fish caught or farmed in the Mediterranean EU countries, almost 2 kilograms are imported from others. Greek seafood is comprised of three main components: fish, shellfish, and other. The fish consumed in Greece makes up 62% of the total seafood consumed. Shellfish makes up 20% of the seafood consumed, and the other category represents octopus, squid, and shark. Greece is not only a large consumer of seafood, they are also a large producer of it. Currently, there's 320 fish farms operating all over Greece, most of which are small family-owned businesses. These farms produce many species of fish, but the majority of fish produced are the sea bream and sea bass. In 2018, the total production of sea bass and sea bream increased by 7% from the previous year, reaching 117,000 tons. Greek production represents 58% of the sea bass and sea bream farmed in the EU and 24% at a global level. Of the fish exported from Greece, sea bass and sea bream made up the majority. On a global scale, Greek production represents 58% of the sea bass and sea bream farmed in the EU and 24% worldwide. There are three main points of entry for Greece: retail, food service, and hotel and restaurant. ASME's priorities should be primarily in the retail sector until the brand is more established and while the economy continues to rebound. Further research is needed, including a market visit, to conclude if there is potential for secondary processing in Greece, as well as consumer-ready value-added products. Their food processing industry accounts for 10% of employment in the country, while the food industry as a whole accounts for 26% of all manufacturing. Still, retail is the most viable market entry sector. In the pie chart, we see the imports of consumer-oriented products from 2018. The U.S. is a small supplier to Greece, only accounting for 1% of the consumer-oriented imports. Of that 1%, over 40% was agricultural, fish, and forestry. Fish and seafood imports were valued at $4.8 million in 2018. There's so much opportunity for Alaska Seafood to expand its market share in the country. Only real relevant fish imports of Alaska species are salmon and hake, which you can see is only a small portion of overall imports, the orange and yellow sections on the graph. It's worth noting that although overall imports of fish and seafood has gone down, 2018 numbers for both Alaska species saw an increase. Overall, 66% of the fish consumed in Greece is imported. Their citizens are among the largest seafood consumers worldwide. The USDA identified squid, smoked and frozen salmon, lobster, shrimp, crab, catfish, scallops, and pollock as the best prospects for exports to Greece. Of those 9 products, 6 are relevant to Alaska species. Pollock is the largest by volume and salmon by value. 60% of seafood in the U.S. comes from Alaska. If Alaska was its own country, it would be the 5th largest producer in the world. ASME has an incredible opportunity to cultivate this market with ATP funds. Things to consider and challenges to expect. First, imports are handled through sales agents or distributors who sometimes work directly with retail by exclusive sales rights. Therefore, establishing relationships with local contacts will be key. Next, food businesses are typically small and family-owned. Finding enough restaurants to put new Alaska products on the menu in order to export efficient quantities for the desired price point will prove to be challenging. Seeking restaurant entry only is not a viable option at this point. Next, there are import duties such as ad valorem cost, insurance, and freight in place for U.S. products, whereas there is none for other EU goods, which is increasing competition. Also, specific certifications per species as well as product and weight regulations per species can be challenging to navigate without an experienced exporter. Finally, tourism is seasonal. With 30 million visitors, the consumption pattern will definitely change. I'd highlight some of the positives. The U.S. and Greece have had long-standing cultural and political ties. Consumer trends are for healthy, wholesome, natural foods, all of which Alaska Seafood offers, which is driving sales of premium, low-processed food. Consumers care about traceability and quality, which are also 2 areas where Alaska Seafood shines. The U.S. has a great brand recognition and image in Greece. Most importers speak English, and ASME does not need to establish a workforce. It utilizes an already existing importer, distributor, and retail outlets. Food standards and regulations, Greece follows the EU policies. ASME is already active in several EU countries with well-established, robust programs. ASME's freight forwarder has been in the industry for almost 30 years and has well-established relationships with importers. In conclusion, fish and seafood products have been identified by the USDA as the 2nd top sector for imports. The economy in Greece is rebounding, but lingering effects of the unstable economy during the recession mean consumers are still price sensitive. The good news is that Greek consumers are trending towards a natural, wholesome, healthy diet, and the U.S. imports are highly regarded. Exporting Alaska Seafood to Greece is an opportunity that should be approached strategically with the right product at the right price point and working with local representation in both importing and distributing, coupled with the marketing activities and brand building. That was a list of data sources utilized in this presentation. We relied on the USDA Foreign Agricultural Services Global Agriculture Information Network, which is provided by the local posts in foreign markets. Other secondary data was utilized to incorporate specific business market entry strategies for due diligence.